Pepsi once had a unique and somewhat unconventional Navy strategy. This refers to a historical event in the late 1950s and early 1960s when PepsiCo struck a deal with the Soviet Union that resulted in the company acquiring a fleet of naval vessels. Here's a detailed account of this intriguing chapter in Pepsi's history. Let's talk about the background first. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was largely isolated from Western markets, which included popular consumer goods like soft drinks. However, in the 1950s, cultural exchanges began to soften relations. One notable event was the 1959 American National Exhibition in Moscow, where then Vice President Richard Nixon and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev famously engaged in the kitchen debate. At this event, Khrushchev tasted Pepsi for the first time, served by Donald Kendall, Pepsi's then CEO. They struck a deal. The taste test by Khrushchev planted the seeds for Pepsi's entry into the Soviet market. By 1972, PepsiCo struck an official deal to sell its soda in the USSR. However, due to the Soviet Union's ruble not being convertible to other currencies and not being widely accepted in international trade, they had to find an alternative means of payment. The Soviets agreed to pay Pepsi in Stolishnya vodka, which PepsiCo then sold in the United States and other Western markets. Vodka at that time was a very popular drink. Let's talk about the naval fleet incident. By the late 1980s, the original barter agreement had to be renewed. This time, Pepsi required greater compensation for its expanding operations and market penetration. In 1989, another groundbreaking deal was made, but this time, the Soviets offered Pepsi an unusual form of payment: a fleet of decommissioned naval vessels. This included 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, a destroyer. Many asked why naval vessels. Well, the Soviet Union's military assets were one of the few valuable resources they could trade. The deal, valued at around $3 billion, effectively made PepsiCo one of the largest submarine fleets in the world, at least temporarily. Pepsi, however, had no intention of keeping the ships. They were sold for scrap, providing PepsiCo with the hard currency they needed at that time. But this incident, however short it might be, has left an impact and legacy. This episode is often cited as a fascinating example of Cold War era business ingenuity and the lens companies went to navigate the complex geopolitical landscape. Donald Kendall famously quipped at Brent Scowcroft, President George H.W. Bush's national security advisor, "We are disarming the Soviet Union faster than you are." That's what Pepsi said to the American government. So in summary, Pepsi's Navy strategy was a creative and pragmatic approach to international trade during a time when traditional methods were not feasible due to geopolitical tensions. It remains a legendary anecdote in the annals of corporate history. Thank you, fantastic folks. I'll be seeing you in the next episode.